start the recording. Thank you, Diane, for reminding me. And I am going to turn it over to Joan, who is going to be presenting to you tonight. She is from Kenton County. She's the FCS agent there, and I'll let her do a little more introduction of herself to you. And be sure, if you are just hopping on, you go ahead and put your name in the chat, and make sure you try to keep your computers muted as much as you can throughout the presentation. All right, Ms. Joan, all yours.
Thank you, Kenna. I want to welcome everyone to Travel the World Without Leaving Your Kitchen in our cultural cuisine cook along. So those of you hopefully are able to cook along with us today, I'll offer some hopefully tips and tricks. And if you found that you've made the recipes that we're making today and you have a suggestion, please feel free to type it in the chat or let us know in some way. Again, my name is Joan Bowling. I'm the Kenton County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences, and I appreciate deeply that Cannon Knight in Pendleton and Diane Mason from Boone County are here to assist me with all the technology issues and questions and maintaining the chat and so forth. So of those of you that have been to Italy, if you could let us know what your favorite food was, as Diane had asked, that would be great. Diane, do we have any answers?
Gelato.
Gelato, how about that?
Pesto.
I like pesto as well. I think as Americans, we really learn to adore Italian cuisine, and there's so many different types of foods that have come to us from Italy over the many years. Pasta and pizza, of course, being the most common, and we probably overindulge in pasta and pizza. At least I know my family sometimes can, because one, it's easy to make, quick and easy for the family, and you can feed a lot of people generally for not that much money, except for some of the ingredients that we bought for today are a little bit costly, with the exception of the polenta. That's fairly inexpensive. But if you go to make the pesto, it can start to get a little pricey. But as American, Italy's culinary history is so rich and diverse. There's so many different foods that we enjoy, that we eat. So in the Middle Ages, pasta became popular and was easily preserved food. So when you don't have refrigeration, it's easy to have pasta because it's shelf stable. It stays dry until you decide to cook it up. So in the 17th century, tomatoes were added, as you probably saw from the publication. Tomatoes started to be added to the sauces and became a staple in Italian cuisine today. So there's some regional differences in Italy as well. And those of you who have traveled to Italy, you probably noticed, if you were in the north end or the south end, the difference in the foods a little bit. I believe in the north, it's more likely that they use butter, whereas in the south, olive oil is more standard in their cuisine. But there are 20 regions. So Kenna, you want to share any of the things that you learned about food while you were in Italy?
No, it was just all good. That's all. That's what I'm very rich. The biggest thing that I think we talked about it even with Diane a little bit, even in the session before, talking about the Middle East, the Mediterranean type countries where that food is served. They eat really late, and they eat in shifts. So when you look at a menu, it's not like you look at a menu in our country, or where you have your whole meal in that menu or in that item description. You get meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans.
Right.
There you had to order each thing separately and build upon it, which was one thing that I noticed a lot of as well.
And often they take many hours, sometimes on a real Italian meal, that they may take many hours to consume all the different foods and the breads and you name it. They take their time eating, where here in the United States, often it
was almost as offended if you asked them for a bill, because they expected you to sit there and enjoy and eat slowly.
And I do like to eat slowly, but when you're traveling somewhere, you want to see as much as you possibly can a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So there are many structured courses in Italian cuisine. We're only going to make a couple items, and I'll get to those in just a moment. But as I said, in Northern Italy, butter is the most common. It's more common than olive oil, and along with dairy products and cheeses. It's used for preparing like a lot of cream sauces. So that would be more of the difference. While pasta is everywhere in Italy, polenta, risotto, and gnocchi are often prepared in its place. So I'm going to show you a couple different pastas. We'll sort of skip a little bit ahead because I want to get to the cooking part. And in your publication, if you printed that out, you might have seen there's a little chart that tells you all the different little pastas. So if anyone, I'm going to show one and you tell me what you think this one is. Does anyone know?
You can write it in the chat or unmute yourself and tell her.
One piece. I'm going to show, yeah, I'll hold up one.
Cavatappi.
That's
Millie?
right. Exactly. Cavatappi. And that is something that can be used with any sauce, particularly those that include vegetables and lean proteins. It's an S shape and has little ridges in it that will hold the sauce close to it. So these little tubes. Here, this one is easy. You can't go wrong with this one.
I mean, somebody has to answer.
One. No takers. It's the Rotel. It's a wagon wheel. It's wheel shaped, of course, and used with cream or seafood sauces. Here's another one. Anyone? Or
Shells.
It's orchata. Close. It is close. It's a little bit different than the shell. I didn't get shells because I thought everyone's seen the shell, but this is an orchata.
Yeah, little ears.
And that's little ears. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're cute little ears. And used with ricotta and cream base as well. How about these? Anyone? Big, they're big.
Pappardelle.
Exactly. You guys
I
are
can't
good.
say it.
I can't say any of them, so I'm letting you guys say them. That's why. See, that's my trick here today. They're flat and wide. They're hearty sauces, ingredient and what used with sauces with meats and so forth. Here's another one. It's got ridges, it's hollow in the middle. It's pretty standard. We see these a lot here.
Is it rigatoni?
It's rigatoni. Yeah, there's a little bit of difference between the rigatoni and the what's the other one you just said, Diane? Penne. The penne is
Manicotti.
I'm sorry,
Manicotti? No.
yeah, manicotti are the big noodles. They're like big and
Mhm.
round, and you stuff them with a good cream sauce. I didn't get any of those. But the rigatoni, short, wide tubes with ridges on the outside, it's for chunkier sauces generally. So you can eat them with a lot real chunky sauces. One of my favorite, I like angel hair for some reason. It's my favorite. I didn't buy angel hair, but it's so delicate that it cooks so fast and sometimes too fast and gets mushy. And I like mine al dente, which is a bit firm. So here's the next one. Anyone have?
Mm. That's my favorite.
I don't think I've
Gnocchi.
ever had it. Gnocchi, exactly. Why is it your favorite?
I don't know. I first ate it when I was in Venice and I fell in love with it.
Yeah. Do you
Um,
make it?
I have not made it. Kelsey and I always say we are, but I bought pesto gnocchi before. I have tomato mozzarella gnocchi in my cabinet right now. They
Yeah.
make it really well and very shelf stable that you can purchase now.
Yeah.
I like it.
They're like little dumplings, and they're generally made of wheat, eggs, and potatoes, and served with tomato-based kinds of pesto sauces. And this is the last one I'm gonna quiz you on.
Orzo.
Orzo, you guys are great. Yeah, orzo, small, rice-shaped, real firm in texture, and it's a versatile ingredient. You can use it for about anything. So that's my little pasta quiz for the day. But often there's different things. When I go to an Italian restaurant, often I'm like, well, I don't know what kind of pasta that is. And sometimes I order thinking that I like the sauce that's going on it, and then I don't necessarily like the pasta that it's served with. And so they're all served with a specific pasta, but I'm one, I like certain pastas and I don't like others. I think we're all that way. We get a favorite and we stick to our favorites a little bit.
The chart is fantastic.
I'm sorry.
The chart that
chart,
you
yeah.
included, yes, that's good.
It is a good chart. So it's one that it would be handy if you're going to, especially an authentic Italian restaurant, knowing what kind of pasta that is and what it looks like, and whether or not you're going to like the sauce with it as well. So back to Northern Italy, where we are going to make the polenta today, but polenta is finely ground yellow cornmeal. It's a dish made, well, anyway, you're going to make the Parmesan polenta. I'm just using regular cornmeal in this recipe, but we're going to make it second. We'll make the tiramisu first, and I'll get to that in a minute. But Northern Italy is known for the polenta, risotto, gnocchi is a type that the dumpling that I showed you, truffles that are classified as mushrooms, so to speak, and also pesto is generally made with basil and pine nuts. It's a real expensive dish to make if you're going to use pine nuts. In southern Italy, where olive oil is most commonly used in cooking, fresh pasta is pretty much the foundation of everything, and of the most meals, and often topped with sauce. So this is where we have the pizzas, and an authentic Italian pizza generally doesn't have all the toppings on it that we like in the United States. You know, we pile everything that we can on those pizzas, and it's not generally the way it's done, of course, in Italy. And what's notable when you go to an authentic pizza restaurant in maybe New York City, where you're getting a real slice of Italian pizza, well, at least in some of the restaurants, it's a lot different. You're not going to have all of the different toppings as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started making the tiramisu, because I think that's what we're all here to do right now. And we'll talk a little bit more in a bit, get some of my stuff out of the way. And on this recipe, there are two recipes. Now, there's a recipe that we sent to you, and it's different than the recipe in the publication. And I'm going to explain why I chose a different recipe. The number one reason is that the recipe in the publication calls for pasteurized shelled eggs, which I could not find in the three stores that I went to. I don't know if anyone else is able to find those, but the reason it calls for pasteurized shelled eggs, pasteurized shelled eggs, is because that is a recipe that is you're using the raw egg. And of course, try to practice food safety in extension. And we want to make sure that you understand that raw eggs may contain salmonella, and the type of harmful bacteria that's on those eggs is, what we're trying to avoid. So that's why we decided that. Now, there the pasteurized shelled eggs go through a particular process that your regular eggs do not, and that's to cleanse the egg of all of the harmful bacteria. So it's important, if you use the recipe that's in the publication, that is really a traditional recipe. And the reason it was put in the recipe because it is authentic to Italian cuisine, because that's what they use. They use the raw egg. The recipe I shared with you is going to make us a little bit about the same amount, but it's also going to be, we're going to use a double boiler method. If you don't own a double boiler, you don't have to have one. As I said in my publication, you can use a pan and a bowl on top of it. I tried doing this last night at home and it worked just fine, but for the sake of today, I brought my own double boiler. So, but before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and start warming up the water for that. And that's what you can go ahead and do. And so we'll go ahead and get our water, a little bit, about a quarter of the pan full of water in the double boiler, bottom portion, and we'll start warming it up. I probably should have already had that started, but we'll let you. I'm gonna go ahead and start warming it, and I'll probably end up having to turn it down in just a minute. So in the meantime, while I'm allowing that to warm, let me make sure I don't have. There we go. Haven't used this stovetop in a while. So we're gonna warm that up, and then in the top portion of the double boiler, we're going to add eggs and sugar. But before we get to that, I want to mix my whipping cream. I'm going to do this first so that we don't have to rush at the end. So get out your whipping cream. I think the recipe I sent you is in order, and the recipe I printed for myself it's not in order. That's not good. So I'm going to measure out one cup. Of heavy whipping cream. And I'm pour it in my bowl here. Can you see that? Or do I need to move my thing? I probably should have switched where I was. Let me this. Okay. Okay. So I've got my whipping cream. We're going to adjust the camera here for you. There we go. And we're going to whip this, and so you're not going to be able to hear me while I'm whipping this. We're going to whip this until there's soft white peaks on this. Trying to get it a little faster here. Oh, hold on. I'm not used to this. There we go. Not used to this in particular, my mixer. So this is going to take several minutes to get it to the point. And while I'm mixing this, I should have had to get all your ingredients down. I wasn't even thinking, so I apologize for that in advance. Hopefully you have them out.
That's okay, Joan, but if they've listened to other presentations that we've done, they know. And they've got several emails to say, have all your ingredients out and ready.
I feel like this mixer's slow.
It's like every stove, every oven, every mixer is totally different. Diane, just so you know, Joan is muted. Diane, I don't know if you heard me or Joan, if you heard me, but you are muted now for some reason. And then everybody else that is cooking along, know that you should have your double boiler bottom on and you're whipping your whipping cream until it's in soft peaks.
Okay, as you can see, soft peak is when you're able to touch it and it holds its shape. One thing, a suggestion I would make. A suggestion I would make is to make sure all your eggs are, of course, or your whipping cream's got to be cold, but also your bowl, your beaters. If the colder, the better. What I'm going to do at this point, and I'm going to cover this and put it in the refrigerator for a moment while we get everything else, while I do the other things, and keep the whipping cream cold. Okay, the next phase is we're going to mix the egg yolks in the top of the double boiler portion. And I'm going to get my eggs out, made 3 eggs. And you will need an extra bowl, 2 extra bowls, really. Well, 1. Because you want to break your eggs. Break your eggs into a separate bowl that allow the egg whites. Now, some people might want to use a slotted spoon. That's fine too. But the best, I generally just use the egg to slide it back and forth and to get the egg white out. Now, last night when I did this, I got eggshells everywhere. I broke my yolk. Had to start over. So hopefully I got all the bad, my bad habits out of the way. So you're gonna put that in one of them. There's 1, maybe 2. You could save these egg whites for another time, maybe in the morning, and have some egg white on your toast. Be healthy to counteract the unhealthy tiramisu. Did I say that out loud? There's 2. And then definitely wash your hands after you cracked all these eggs. I'm gonna do that as soon as I finish this portion, get the egg yolk off of my hands. That real quick.
If you're cooking along and things go too fast, make sure you tell
Yeah.
them to slow down. They can, and I know most of your cameras are off, so I can't tell what you're doing. You just have to let me know.
I say in the top of the boiler here, I have the egg yolks. And I'm going to add 2/3 cup sugar, which I've pre-measured, just for to simplify today, but this is one of those things that if you get a little extra, it's not going to harm it too much, but 2/3 cup is plenty. You definitely want to measure that in a dry measuring cup. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to beat these. Look at me. Look at me making a mess. This doesn't happen in everybody else's kitchen. And my stove didn't like that, did it? So I'm gonna mix these up just a little bit. And the reason I went ahead, I didn't want to have to bother with washing my beaters. It won't matter if the egg and the whipping cream get mixed together in this phase, but I didn't want to do it the opposite way, so. Mix that a little bit. And then I'm going to add the 2/3 cup. And you're going to mix this until it's all yellow and it seems to be creamy the best you can. And I'm going to bump up the water a little bit so it gets pretty hot. I may hopefully have enough in there for now.
I see some of you mixing.
I'll wait a minute if you all need me to wait just a minute.
I think they're good.
Okay.
Those that I can see. And those that I can't will holler if they're not.
Okay. So now that my double boiler is hot, the water's boiling there, I'm going to put the top of the double boiler over. And I'm going to continue to stir. Now I decided to use a whisk here. Last night when I was making this, I tried to use the mixer and it was a little bit much for me. So let's hold on to, and then if you're using a double boiler, your own version of a double boiler with a bowl and you've got to be real careful not to burn yourself with that steam that's coming out of between the two sections. So this is the part of making the tiramisu that can be a little bit complicated because you want to make sure that the egg gets pasteurized to and it's safe to eat without actually cooking the egg yolk, but you want to make sure that the sugar is dissolved in it. So it does take a few minutes. and you have to stir it constantly. But I felt like it was easier for me to mix it at this juncture with the whisk. And my arm got a little tired last night. And I may have gotten my mixture a little bit too hot. So I'm turning that water down, the heat on my double boiler, so I don't get it too hot. Making sure that the sugar dissolves and gets, it should be a creamy, it shouldn't be gritty. Although I will tell you, last night, when I left mine just a little bit, it wasn't completely dissolved all the way. By the time I added everything, there was no indication of any kind of grains of sugar. It all dissolved within it. And there was, to me, nothing wrong. My secretary's like that tiramisu today when I brought it to work. How's everybody doing out there?
Looks like everybody's doing good that I can see. I see happy hands mixing.
I'm gonna grab a spoon. And see how close we're getting to being finished with this portion. Mine started to crystallize a little last night and I couldn't understand why. So I'm gonna take it off the heat for a second. It's still a little bit grainy.
So you're cooking and mixing until you get most of that graininess out.
Most of the graininess out, yes. And last night I let it go too long, so I'm gonna try not to do that today. I'm gonna take that off the heat. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stovetop off. And the next step is to add the mascarpone sugar, or not sugar, cheese. Can't even speak today. So you're going to remove that from the heat, and then you're going to beat until smooth with the hand mixer, but not overbeat the cheese in there. So I'm going to take my whisk out. Now I'm going to get my cheese out. You can substitute this type of cheese with cream cheese. It's a lot less expensive, I would say. And we're going to beat this for 15 to 30 seconds, but not much longer than that. Because it will separate. You better keep me count.
Somebody said they could only find old count.
Okay. That's perfectly fine. Yep. I think that's a little bit long. My cheese didn't get out. It got stuck on my beater a little bit. So I don't want to over mix it. Give it one more little click here. Get that chunk off of there. Yeah, using old pound cake is perfect. We want it a little bit stale. You don't have to use those lady fingers.
Yep.
Some people don't like the flavor of lady fingers. They're real mild and delicate. And I like them fine, but I think that I might have liked my tiramisu a little bit better had I used the pound cake instead. On the next stage, I'm gonna go ahead and add a teaspoon of vanilla to my mixture, and I'm not going to include the brandy here. Some people prefer the liquor in there, and that there's nothing wrong with that. That makes it traditional and authentic. That's perfectly fine. I did like the vanilla extract that I added, and I added it within this portion here. But I'm going to add the vanilla extract at this stage, 1 teaspoon. Open up the major over top of your recipe, so you don't dump too much in there. You always want to add the vanilla after the cooking stage. It'll just cook out if you don't. Mix that in there. At this point, it's going to go fairly quick in putting things together. And I don't have a fancy bowl to layer your tiramisu, but I did find some lady fingers this week, and I found some lady fingers in the cookie section that were from imported from Italy, it said. And then I also found some lady fingers in the bakery section, which sort of surprised me, over by where the fresh breads were. So I was a little bit surprised by that. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to layer. I'm going to put a little bit of my coffee mixture. Those of you that may have made your coffee, you can go ahead and use go ahead and mix up your coffee granules. That's a lot less expensive way to make the tiramisu, by using the instant coffee, mixing it together with boiling hot water. So I'll give you a moment to do that. We're not going to necessarily use a full cup, or however much coffee you want, you can use. But I'm going to go ahead and put half of my lady fingers down in here while you guys are mixing your coffee, or you can go ahead and put your lady fingers in your bowl. You can use a loaf pan, you can use a cake pan, you can use something fancy to make it look like you really made a very fancy dessert today. But you'll have to wait till tomorrow to eat it. That's the unfortunate thing. Okay, so I've gotten that out. I'm going to go ahead and take a basting brush, and I'm going to baste these because these are real soft and moist. Last night when I made this, I used the more stale type, and I dipped them, and I probably got too much in. I mean, I like the coffee, but I felt like it made it too soggy, and this maybe might be not enough coffee. I don't know. Just depends. I mean, some people love a lot of coffee in theirs. And if you wanted to add the brandy, you would add the brandy in the coffee mixture. I'm sorry for skipping that. It seems to take a long time to get this brushed on there.
Yeah. The recipe, the individual that shared the recipe with Joan and I that make this for their restaurant, they sometimes even put bourbon in with the coffee.
Make it more of a Kentucky flavor.
Yeah. Or a traditional, or not traditional, a Kentucky twist to it.
We do what we want here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
We put bourbon on it. I've seen recipes where people have added rum. You know, some people just add whatever they've got at the time. So I didn't put a whole bunch of coffee in this particular, on this particular layer. I didn't saturate it. Some people would like to saturate it. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull out the whipping cream, or the whipped cream that we made. This is where I'm going to go ahead and add the cheese mixture, the cheese and egg and sugar mixture. and you're gonna fold it. Okay, not stir it, but we'll fold it in. Hopefully my mixture wasn't too hot at that point. I should have taken that off a little bit earlier, and I may have mixed it too hot. It may be a little bit too warm. But we are in it now. In other words, what I should have done is taken off the double boiler off of the heat better earlier and let it set for just a little bit longer before I mixed it in with the whipping cream. So when you get a live show, you get to see all the mistakes I make. So it might be way too hot. We're going with it now. We're in it. How's everybody doing?
I see a lot of people
Mhm.
mixing. And remember, we need to see pictures, so take pictures of your products as you do them. You're good, you're bad, and you're ugly sometimes.
Well, mine might be ugly today.
I doubt.
I'm gonna pour half of the mixture over the fingers, the lady fingers.
It looks good, though.
You guesstimate it. Now the recipe doesn't call to put chocolate in the middle, but I'm going to throw a few chocolate bits in the middle myself
Because chocolate makes
I like
everything
chocolate.
taste better.
now you could use cocoa here. I took a dark chocolate bar and shaved it a little bit. Made some. You'd use milk chocolate if you wanted. So I'm going to add a little bit of chocolate, even though it might not call for it on this particular layer. And I'm just going to, because he doesn't like a little extra chocolate, right?
Right.
Again, not a lot, just a taste. And then I'll put another layer of the lady fingers on and repeat that step. You could use the whole lady finger if you want. I'm just going to use half of them. Sorry. And you could make a little design around the edges if you wanted to make it very pretty.
And if you didn't keep up with what was in the chat or some that Joan had said earlier, you can use
Pound
pound cake.
pound cake.
Yep. And stale is better, or
Steel
older
is better. These are really soft, so it'll be interesting to me if I like them, because I'm not really saturating them, but still. Again, trying not to put too much coffee, but I like coffee. And what I'm using is just last night I had leftover coffee from the morning before, and that's what I used. I don't buy instant granules, so I just had a little bit of coffee and used the cold coffee. Or you can buy expensive espresso coffee. It's one, you can make this whatever flavor you want. And this is just black coffee. As you go and you buy these things at the store, you can see everything. It's got cream, it's got vanilla, it's got sugar, it's got everything. And this has enough sugar in the recipe that we don't need to add coffee with more sugar on it. But tiramisu was used as a midday treat, and it is used as a midday treat in Italy to sort of help people get through the day. A little bit of, instead of drinking their cup of joe,
What could
they're
you-
going to eat it.
What could you use if you don't like coffee?
Gosh, I don't have some. I'm sorry.
Would you-
What can you use if you don't like coffee? I don't necessarily think you'd have to use anything, would you? You could use a different flavor of liquid. Do you have
Just
any
use your
ideas? Does anybody have any ideas?
Yeah, well, the whole point about the tiramisu is it has that coffee flavor to it.
Yeah.
That's part of that traditional recipe.
Right.
But I would assume you could almost leave that part out, maybe just brush it with,
You could. You wouldn't have to put anything.
right? But if you're using Staler bread or your harder lady fingers, you might want something to soften it up. Somebody suggested maybe a flavored tea or something almond flavored if you like
Almond would be good.
flavor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think almond would taste good.
Yeah,
Yes.
amaretto would be very good. That's a
Yeah.
good suggestion. I like that as well, but
It could get really strong flavored if you use too much some amaretto.
right. But if you, as you notice, as Joan was doing it, she's just, I mean, she hasn't used much coffee at all. She just lightly brushed it on there. And you'd have to, the harder your lady fingers are and the staler your pound cake might be, you might need a little more.
Right, right. And yesterday I used a lot more coffee. And I think I like the flavor fine, but it was just a little bit soggier than what I would have liked. And I think that's where, I like pound cake real well, so. You could change up the flavor, you can buy those already pre-made cakes that have vanilla or different flavors in them, and you could change up the thing altogether. So this recipe, you could have also garnished it with a dusting of cocoa powder and completely covered it, which is in the picture of your tiramisu. That's what that is. So this is the final version of mine. And then you were going to refrigerate this 8 to 10 hours, no less than 8. This would be something that you would have tomorrow, and you would need to eat it within 3 to 4 days, maximum 4. I don't think the quality of it, even if it's safe to eat, the quality won't be there. I think it needs to be probably for best quality within 2 days. That's my personal opinion. But as far as food safety wise, you could let it go a little longer. You could also make this in little individual cups if you were having a dinner party, and little dishes, or if you would want to go to that much trouble. But seems like a lot of effort. But this should set up pretty well once it sets for the 8-hour interval. It should set up really well. Here we go.
Yep.
So
And
I'm
it
gonna
does-
cover that tightly. And then I'm going to clean up my mess real quick and give you guys a second to do that. And then we will start on the plant. So let me refrigerate this.
Some
Tracy
places
said
say
it
the
looked-
tiramisu looks delicious.
Well, I hope it.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It does look delicious. And remember, these delicious dishes that you are making, we want to see your pictures. So be sure to take a picture of it as you finished it this evening, or as you cut into it tomorrow. How many of you, this is the first time you have ever made tiramisu? Anybody? Yep. I have never made it before, so I've ate it in lots of restaurants, but I've never made it before. So several first timers.
All right. Let's see. I'm trying to get everything out of the way.
There's a lot of first timers, so we'll have to see if it's if it is a dish you make again sometime. It's really not that hard. It doesn't take that long. So I'll be curious.
Well, I think I felt like the advantage is it doesn't heat up your whole kitchen. It's a light dessert. It's not heavy. And so that's one thing that I liked about the tiramisu. I don't know that it's something that I would order in a restaurant, maybe. Just depends on how much it is, because I sort of am cheap. But if it's a real good Italian restaurant, I think that I would be more inclined to try a tiramisu in the restaurant as well. So we're going to move on to the polenta, the Parmesan polenta. And I'll give you a couple little tidbits of information. It's sometimes referred to as Italian grits. As you'll notice, a lot of people, some of us around here like grits. It's the same kind of, almost the same kind of texture. And it can be used as a side dish completely by itself, or you can actually put the ragu on it as the base. It's used as a base for ragu, which I thought was interesting. So when I made it a couple weeks ago, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. So I actually put the ragu on it, but I also liked it as a side dish. It doesn't heat up quite as well, but it heated up okay the next day when I had it. So I think it's a good dish to try, and something that adds a little bit to me. It added a little bit something different to my palate, and also introduced it to my kids who also enjoyed it. So
Our kids become our guinea pigs, don't they?
yes, they do, and mine don't seem to mind that so much. They seem to be all right with that.
Yep. As Joan's talking you through, I'm curious on who has made polenta before. Or is this gonna be your first time making this dish as well?
I'm gonna move over. We're gonna start with, we need an onion. I'm gonna use my stovetop, thank goodness sakes. We need an onion, so we'll go ahead and get things out. You'll need an onion. I'm not gonna use this full onion because it's a big one. We need 2 cloves of garlic, extra virgin olive oil, which I have. We need our olive oil, onion, couple cloves of garlic. Holy, those are big ones. That's a big one. Use or a super duper large one. Or is that 2? We're going to use a super duper large one. Or you can use 5 cloves of garlic, depending on what you like. We need butter, cornmeal. I'm not putting this where you can see it, but also vegetable broth and salt and Parmesan cheese. Those are our ingredients that we're going to use today. And we'll start, and I'm probably not going to be. I'm going to go ahead and use, it says a half of a small yellow onion. I don't think I'm going to use half of this onion. I'll use a lot of it though. I do not like cutting on that. I'm going to move this over to a different space here while I chop my onion. Just because I don't like using that cutting on my stovetop. It's not good for the stovetop, even with the make sure you just keep your fingers out of the way. I'll try not to bleed out here. That would be embarrassing.
It happens on the cooking shows. I watch it. Then somebody, then it come quick. Diane's there. She'll
go get me some Band-Aids, right?
wrap you up and it happens. I've seen it.
It would make for a good story.
Yup.
Maybe for you guys. I don't like huge chunks of onion, so I cut mine up a little bit more than some people. But you don't want to overcut them either, I guess.
Mumbai smells like poo-poo.
I think it's one of these things, if people don't like onion, certainly you don't have to add it, but some people don't like textures of the texture of onion in their things, and you could add onion powder if you needed to. Same with the garlic, you could add the garlic powder instead of garlic. But I do like the real thing. So again, and then also with our garlic clove, generally, I'm going to go ahead and get which one should I use? Maybe I'll use this one. I'm gonna go ahead and get my olive oil started. Oops, we fell down. That was great. Okay, the recipe calls for about 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. And I am using a pan size that I think is not very big, or it's a little bit too big for what I'm doing. I got over to the office, this office today, and I had not brought my own equipment from home, and I like my own equipment. So when you're cooking in someone else's kitchen, even though it's your own office kitchen, you sometimes get by with. So I am, because of the size of this, hopefully one teaspoon is gonna be enough. Oops, I over poured, darn it. Don't do that. You're not supposed to measure over top of your pans. Did I say that already?
Mhm. That's okay.
Okay. And then we're going to add, I'll let that warm up just a bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and get my clove of garlic minced. But I will say there are a couple ways you can use a garlic press. The disadvantage with a garlic press is then you have to wash a garlic press. So I generally use a knife or something hard to push it. Oh, that was 2 cloves. It looked like 1. To smash a little bit to get the garlic skin off of it. And then mince your garlic. I'm gonna use a smaller knife so I don't chop my finger off. How are we doing on mincing? Or cutting, anybody?
Seems like they're doing pretty good.
And keep your fingers out of the way of the blade. I'd use the big knife, but. I spent the entire weekend doing tiles, so my hands hurt. So that's my excuse for my. Now I'll use the big knife. Mix it up a little bit. Now you want to get to your olive oil until it's shimmering. This is not shimmering yet. Would you call that shimmering? Not. So we've got the medium high heat of the olive oil until it shimmers, and then we're going to add the onion and cook it for 8 minutes or so. I don't think 8 minutes sounds like a long time. If they're big, it's a long time. I think mine is a lot smaller, so I'm not using. It's going to take a little bit longer, of course, if they're big, because they need to be more translucent in color. And since I cut mine to death, because that's the way I like mine. I think we're getting there. You guys ready to put your onion in? And be careful about your burning point on your olive oil. Sometimes it's not very high, so you don't want to leave the olive oil in that pan, that really hot pan, for a long time, because it's going to not be good. And I probably did not wait long enough. And that's about as much onion as I'm going to use, because I use a really big onion. And we're going to let that cook up for just a minute. And add a little bit more. I don't know that the polenta is really an exact science. Like baking. And I think Italians tend to just use their heart when they're cooking, maybe.
They act like they do.
They did, exactly. They're like, oh, a little bit
Filled
more of
with both.
this and a little bit more of that.
Yep. You ever watch Lydia?
I've got a big. So I definitely didn't wait quite long enough. I got a little anxious, y'all, sorry. So it's gonna take just a minute for this to cook.
Well, it said it took 8 minutes, so you're in
Yeah.
good shape.
That's true. But I probably didn't wait quite long enough for the oil, but again, with the burning point of olive oil being what it is. So now it's starting to cook up. Your kitchen should currently smell like cooking onion. If you're cooking with us.
And soon a garlic flavor added.
Yes. While I'm waiting for this to cook, I guess the best thing to do would be measure out your 1 cup of cornmeal. So while we're waiting on that, so it'll be ready when we're ready, and also your 3 cups of vegetables. That's another thing you can be doing while you're waiting on that. In the recipe that when I made it once before, 3 cups seemed like plenty at first, and as it cooked down, I felt like I needed to add a little bit, but you'll see as you cook and what texture that you want your blend to be. So 3 cups is just shy of 1 whole container of the vegetable broth. And then I'm gonna try not to spill cornmeal all over the kitchen here. And I measure the cornmeal over a different dish so that I don't make a mess.
Joan, how much vegetable broth did you use?
I use 3 cups of vegetable broth
Okay,
and 1 cup of the cornmeal.
Okay.
I was really shocked as this cooked how much it made, but with only 1 cup of cornmeal. But that says that say it makes, oh, how many servings? 8 servings. So 8. I didn't say how big a serving size. I don't think.
it says 8 servings, yes.
8 servings, but I didn't see the size, the serving size portion. I would say no more than a half.
A half a
be
cup
more
would
than-
be my guess.
It may not even be that much. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's starting to look a little bit more translucent now. Does it say on there?
Mhm.
So we've got this at medium high heat. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit because I think my medium high and other people's medium high might be different. And once I add the garlic, we will want to move pretty quickly and adding the other things. You're gonna go ahead and add your garlic. Make sure not to scrape the garlic off your cutting board with the blade. It dulls it. And then we're gonna cook the garlic for about 30 seconds. And I'm getting ready to add that cornmeal, and I don't want to scorch that cornmeal, so I felt more comfortable turning the heat down a little bit on my pan. Everybody has a different temperature stove. Everybody's electric stove top is gonna be a little bit different. If you're cooking with gas, lucky you.
Yep.
Because it makes it a lot easier to control when you've got gas heat. So I'm gonna add the cornmeal. And we're gonna cook this for just a. Mix this in. But you don't want to scorch it. You gotta be careful make sure to continue to stir this. It is a real dry mixture right now, so this is gonna suggest to stir this for 2 to 3 minutes over that medium high heat. At this point, if you scorch it, then you're gonna be mad at yourself because then you have to start all over again and chop up all those ingredients. But you want to toast it a little bit. Is anyone making this for dinner tonight?
Or snack.
Or snack? Two minutes feels like such a long time.
Yes. Some are making it, Lori's making it for dinner.
Ah, good. As a side dish or someone putting ragu on it or,
Oh, she made the ragu somebody made the ragu this afternoon.
oh, yay.
So they're gonna,
I made the ragu the other day and put it on my chicken parmesan. And I was real pleased with that recipe.
Hmm.
So,
some are doing a canned sauce, some made chicken marzella. I'm coming to their house.
yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
I think we're about 2 minutes in. And so I'm gonna add the vegetable broth, which is at 3 cups we said, and we're gonna cook this. Now, look at me. This is one point I may start to turn this up just a little bit. Now, the recipe says it cooks a long time. Mine did not cook that long. It cooked in real well and real quickly. So we're gonna have to continue to cook this. And I may get my whisk because I think it's easier for me to cook, for me to whisk things than to stir with a spoon.
I agree. We have some very lost my train of word to use. Creative cooks. That's what I was looking for. We have someone that's made their version of ragu with some of the stuff left from the garden, including eggplant. So we'll have some different
Yeah,
sauces going on top of this.
so it is starting to cook in a little bit. The advantage to using a bigger cooktop as well, or pan might be there's more heat distribution across it, so it may not take quite as long to cook this way. But you want it to be smooth, so you have to continue to stir it, because if you don't, it's all going to settle down at the bottom and you're going to have a scorched pile of mush. So this is a non-stick skillet, so I'm using a non-stick whisk that's pretty flimsy. So see, it's starting to thicken up now.
Sometimes we like to rush the process, but we
Yeah.
can never rush the process. If you read the recipe, it says this process is gonna take a good 20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
And the
It's
key
good
is
work-
to
it's a
get
good
not let
workout for your
the food
hand,
not
right?
get lumps in it.
It's a good
But with
wrist
this
work.
particular whisk, there may be some lumps in this. Look at it's pretty.
Yeah.
Let me try a different. I need something a little bit more with a little bit more.
Yeah,
It's all about the equipment sometimes for me.
and all those nonstick whisks.
Yeah,
or those
those
pans
are
aren't
good.
always the best,
They're not. They're not. And
but
I'm
it's good.
questioning
It's a good
them.
wrist workout.
Yes, and my arm's tired. How are other people's polenta coming along? Are they seeing that absorb?
I see a few of you cooking. I don't see everybody on, so somebody
Hmm.
that's doing it. Monica, how's yours doing? Give me a thumbs up if it's doing good. Sherry says hers is doing good.
Okay,
Need some thumbs up in a few other places.
so it does call for.
Lori's is done.
Mine is almost there and it's not taking a full 20 minutes, but again, the size of the pan I'm using is different. And also, how much heat you've got under it. It's, as it absorbs it, you see it starts to thicken up here.
Right.
And when it starts to become more thick, we're gonna add the Parmesan here in a little bit.
The best part of the recipe.
Yes.
It's all.
Oh, salt and pepper. Oh, let's not forget the salt and pepper.
Yep.
And I believe that is towards the end. Isn't it? Or did I forget it? Yeah. Oh, the butter. We can't forget the butter.
Yep.
It'd be bad.
Butter, cheese, and spices
Yeah.
until.
So you're gonna let me put the other stuff in and or cheese in and forget the butter.
Now we went to
Is it 4 tablespoons, I believe?
Yes.
4.
And it did say unsalted butter in the
It
recipe,
did.
because there's a lot of sodium already in this between the
Yes.
broth and the Parmesan cheese. And you're adding.
If all you have is salted, then you could use the salted butter and omit the other salt or not put as much of the salt in. That's what I would do. Parmesan is pretty salty. Can be, see, oh, my arm is tired.
Mhm.
Feel like we're in a pretty good space to go ahead and add our butter. We're gonna remove from the heat. I'm gonna just turn it off. And I'll add the 4 tablespoons. And that's, of course, half a stick. Mix that in. I'm gonna let that get in there and then I will add. How much salt are we calling for? Only a 4 teaspoon, right? So not a lot of salt.
A little salt, little pepper. 1/8 of a teaspoon pepper. And if you don't like pepper, you could probably leave pepper
You
out.
can omit it. White pepper might be a good addition. I used to not understand the white pepper thing, and then I bought some when a recipe called for it instead of just forgetting it. I really liked it.
Mhm.
At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add the 1/2 cup of cheese. I can find my cup measure. But of course I can't.
You can't have too much cheese, can you?
Oh, I can't. I don't like cheese a lot.
Me too.
And we're gonna mix that in until it's nice and mixed. And of course, with any cheese, making sure that it's not continuing to cook, you just want it to melt. Can ruin a good dish by the cheese getting too hot. Has anyone tasted theirs yet?
Looks very good.
Is there any questions or comments about some things that you might have wanted to do differently with a recipe, or suggestions that you might have? Anyone? No?
Even if there's not any questions about the recipes, I know some of you said you have been to Italy. What was your favorite part of Italy? What are some things that you might want to share? Cuisine wise, even from Italy.
Has anyone ever had authentic polenta in Italy?
I had not.
Okay.
Rosemary's going to change the kind of cheese she's going to use in it.
Ah, that's certainly, you can do that. You don't have to use Parmesan,
Or you can use two different kinds.
or you could.
Kenna likes cheese.
Definitely can. I like cheese. I like about every kind of cheese.
Yeah. And Christina repeated, like what Diane had said, that you let the garlic rest because it's more healthy. And then she wanted to know, Diane, why is that so? Is Diane there? Does she know?
Eh.
Did she hear that question?
Are you typing? She's typing it in the chat.
All right, it'll be in the chat. It is good. So, very good. 2 recipes that you are going to get to eat one tomorrow, enjoy one tonight. And there were a lot of other really good recipes in the publications that were sent out as well.
One of the favorites with the ragu recipe is really sensational. If you have any fresh tomatoes still from your garden or in the freezer, use those as well. The pesto recipes, of course, very good as well. But you know, with any of these things, trying them a little, it's a lot more fun to make them and try them. They taste so much fresher. That's the one thing that I appreciate about the Italian cuisine recipes, is mainly just using those fresh ingredients, a lot healthier for you without all the different preservatives, because then you're going to add what you want and there's not the fear of the unknown being in your dish. The other thing is that I wanted to add is that Italians, especially in the what is it, the blue zone in Italy, is it Sardinia, I guess, is the town that they say people live much longer, mainly based because they attribute it to their healthy eating of fresh fruits and vegetables, but also their increased physical activity. So it's really important to get out there and walk a lot. They do spend a lot of time walking and not driving around in their car, or they also might ride their bike. So it's getting a little cold here to be riding our bikes, and walking, or eventually it will. But take advantage of the nice weather while you can, and hopefully you can continue to get out there and get some of those, the last bit of the farmer's market fruits and vegetables that are available out there.
And someone says they're going to eat they like their polenta with eggs over easy for breakfast.
Ah, okay.
I'm going to hit stop recording.
Okay.